We have a full panel today, and it's going to be hard to fit in 20 minutes, but we're going to try. We have different retail verticals, we have different sizes of companies, and we have different marketing leaders to discuss attribution. So MMM, their KPIs. So without further ado, we're going to welcome to the stage Billy May, the CEO of Brooklinen, Doug Jensen, the SVP Go-to-Market, Analytics and Activation and Learning Center of Excellence for the Estée Lauder company. World's longest title. Renee Halvorsen, the CMO of Marine Layer. Ghergich, the VP of Consulting from Botify. And to make sense of all of it and herd these cats, we have Emily Hickey, who is the co-founder and the CEO of Chief Detective.
Doug wins longest title.
Yeah. Need some explanation of that, Doug. Okay, I'm Emily Hickey. I run an agency called Chief Detective. We do advertising and creative for apparel and beauty brands. And we've been obsessing over multi-channel marketing all year long, actually, because I think the feeds and everything have gotten so saturated that it takes recognition, trust, and substance to actually punch through right now. But then you have the problem of measuring it. So thankfully, we have this incredible panel. These guys are all really thinkers and students and experimenters with full funnel marketing and measurement. So guys, we're really excited to learn from you. Can we start with introductions, AJ?
Yeah, first of all, where's my champagne? What's going on here?
Me too. Thanks, Jill. Yeah.
Yes, Jill. You get the real numbers with the champagne. So I'm Ghergich. I'm VP Consulting at Botify. We're focused on organic search in the enterprise and mid-market. And I'll pass to you.
Hi, I'm Renee Halvorsen. I am the CMO of Marine Layer. We are a California leisure-inspired apparel business, and I oversee our paid marketing, brand marketing, and also our creative team, so kind of a different setup at Marine Layer.
Hi, I'm Doug Jensen. I'm a Senior Vice President at Estée Lauder Companies in the function called Enterprise Marketing and Data, and I basically have a data and analytics job.
I'm Billy May. I'm the CEO at Brooklinen. We're the internet's most awarded brand in the soft home essentials space.
Very nice.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys. So AJ, we're going to start with you. We're talking about...
Anyone else?
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
You have my full attention.
Yeah.
That's you.
One more.
You can't drink it?
So measurement, I guess the first question is, where are people putting their money in the first place? So we're going to actually just go, AJ, we're going to start with you and then go down the panel. You guys obviously see across a lot of clients. What are you seeing trends in terms of channel allocation?
Yeah, that's it's one of the things I really love about working at Botify. Is my CEO in the audience? But I really do love it. It's the customer conversations and the amount of data that we see. So we have one of our biggest segments is e-tail e-commerce. And so we have everyone from your mid-market Shopify accounts all the way to Fortune 100, Fortune 50 accounts, the big retailers that you would walk into in New York City, Paris, London. We have their data. And so at the end of the day, there's what people are saying and then what their data is telling you. The story, though, is very simple. It's the story you already know. Budgets are down. Shocking, right? How far down? 20%, probably year over year, closer to 20 than 15 for most folks. And so what does that mean? What are people doing? They're doing the same thing that happens every time budgets are down. When budgets are down, people really focus in on attribution. You're going to have to stand and deliver in front of people who care, your board, and you're going to have to say, this is how I spent the money and here's the ROI. So things that people are kind of leaning out of are things that are top of funnel. So everything right now is, it's not completely canceling top of funnel, but it's leaning out of top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel. Why? I can attribute it easier. So things like OTT, the ads you might see while you're watching Hulu or YouTube, some of that funding is funneling over to bottom of the funnel. What folks are leaning into is AI. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's kind of a big deal. Breaking news. But what I mean by that, because everyone throws it around like, oh, we're leaning into AI. No, you're not. But it's AI automation. And like the quiet part, I think, that isn't being said out loud is that while the budgets are down, so we're down 15, 20%, maybe more depending on the brand, as far as budget, we're up in productivity from AI. And so the teams that I talk to that are winning, everybody on their team has been on AI for quite a while. They're using ChatGPT. They're an AI-enabled team. That productivity gain is offsetting the pain. It's offsetting the pain of the lower budget. So AI automation, governance, not a very sexy topic, but again, what of your data do you want an LLM reading and what do you not want reading? And do you understand the difference between training sets for data and live retrieval? If you have a 12-year-old, I have a 12-year-old son, if I'm talking to ChatGPT, I might say, hey, he's having a birthday coming up, we're having a conversation. I want that assistant to be able to go out and live retrieve my information. But we have to have policies in place so we're not blocking something from live retrieving, a pair of sneakers he may want versus using my data to train. So that governance is key, as well as focus on technical SEO, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think, Billy, you're next. What are you guys leaning in and out of?
So you talked about budgets being down and having to talk to people like me at the end of the day. So I think there are a couple things that we look at and say, hey, where are we leaning in? One is what I'll call progressive messaging. So at any point in time, we'll have 2,000 different creative variations that we're running either with Meta or Google or any of our partners. And then based on customer interaction, basically boosting where we're seeing traction. And so that's sort of progressive messaging, starting with potentially a seasonal newness or a brand message, and then as we move closer to an event, moving more towards promotionality, and progressively moving consumers down the funnel instead of one note. Certainly audience segmentation, so are they new or existing? If they're existing, when? What message and a marketing message that we're targeting those customers and not treating all new customers with one kind of singular note. What I'll call advocates, you'll hear a lot about influencers. We're a strong believer in advocates, consumers that are engaged with the brand, not just promoting your brand. That's an important distinction. And what I'll call AI use cases. So, and you'll see on where I believe we're leaning out. And it's really what problem are you solving with AI and being very clear internally around that use case and what problem you're trying to solve. Where we're leaning out, we were a heavy investor during the pandemic in podcast, and we've slowly pulled back on those dollars. Out of home, in certain markets when we were opening stores was effective, and we've seen the efficacy decline over time. Influencers, going back to advocates or influencers. And then where we're leaning out, there was a lot of, at this time last year around, hey, you need to experiment with AI. You're putting your data into a public forum to, quote, experiment or play or trial. And our belief is focus on the specific use case you're trying to solve, oftentimes starting, let's say, with call center or a problem on site, or whether it's around production. So it's solving a pain point, and how can you redeploy those dollars instead of spending time and energy on experimentation?
Yep, yeah, makes sense. And then, Doug, I know we're already 10 minutes in somehow, so if we could lightning round through these next couple.
So we're leaning into creators and influencers. I like the advocates idea. We think about that as well. The creators obviously are the folks on TikTok that you want to cultivate. The influencers in the beauty industry have been prominent for the last 10 years. So in the beauty and fashion industries, it's been critical. But it's really about how do you work with them? How do you find them at scale? How do you get the products into their hands so that they can do reviews that then advocates and other consumers want to look at to then make decisions about purchasing. Short form video in all of its forms. So TikTok, including TikTok Shop, which a couple of our brands are on. That's really important to us. Instagram Reels, and then YouTube Shorts. And the cool thing about YouTube Shorts is you can produce content in TikTok and just port it over to YouTube. So the portability is pretty easy. And then I'm personally in charge of CRM at my company. So we're trying to drive as much trigger and less broadcast, so less emails out to everyone, more trigger-based, and that's predicated on having a lot of consumers come into your funnel. And so that means anything in any communication from email to SMS to more increasingly other communication devices or channels like WhatsApp. And so I think out of home is a consistent theme for the three of us. Really for us, leaning out of anything traditional, because today's consumer is in all the digital formats. So we're doing a lot less print, a lot less out of home, and direct mail we used to do many years ago, but no longer do.
Interesting. Yeah, that seems to be a lot of people still having success there, but others leaning out. That one seems hit or miss. Renee, what about you guys?
My observations are super similar to what everyone else has shared. So short form video is a big priority, and the only piece that I would maybe layer in is really thinking about how I want to structure our creative team and our marketing teams to develop content at scale that has a clear POV associated with it. I don't think it's just like throwing money at it. I really think it's how are you working together and how are you thinking about using really awesome creative talent to kind of clarify what you're trying to say.
Yeah, awesome.
And leaning out of TV and some direct mail, so same.
Okay, so Renee, sticking with you for a minute. So you guys have been multi-channel for a long time. What's your current philosophy on measurement? Is multi-touch attribution relevant? Is it possible? What KPIs are you guys looking at?
So multi-touch attribution, I have a lot of feelings about multi-touch attribution. I think it's maybe possible, but it's not relevant right now for Marine Layer. One of my first jobs in marketing was at Athleta, and I was on this marketing effectiveness team, and we were really focused on trying to do offline and online multi-touch attribution. And we were just yanking our hair out and spending so much time tinkering and playing with the different inputs and trying to understand, well, maybe they did catalog first, but then they went to a retail store, but what happens if they also saw or searched for us beforehand? How should we think about that? And my big takeaway from that experience is that if you're not careful, it can become an absolute rabbit hole of analysis and really take you away from thinking about the whole picture. So for Marine Layer, we're a smaller business, we're scaling really quickly. My metric that I am extremely focused on and trying to look at all of the time is just truly understanding how many incremental new customers are coming into your business. That seems pretty straightforward, but we actually have 47 retail stores across the country. And so really understanding who is net new, not an older buyer that's been reactivated, not someone who shopped in a retail channel. How many of them are truly coming in, and then looking at weekly CPA values is super important for us.
Yeah, interesting. And Billy, I know that's near and dear to your heart too, is acquisition. Do you want to speak? What are you guys looking at in terms of your acquisition?
I would love to say multi-touch attribution is hugely important. I think to what Renee said, it's incredibly difficult, post in a cookieless world. But we're a smaller brand, direct to consumer. We're predominantly digital. So from a measurement standpoint, we want to be very data oriented and being clear about new, repeat, and the incremental value that we're driving as opposed to just looking at it in aggregate. And that's really important to align from a measurement standpoint and allocation. And it may be, how many touch points. I heard a CMO at a different conference quote, 30 plus touches to the brand before you get to transaction. That's enormous. And obviously would be a really long tail or a lot of touches. We want to be much closer, but there's a place for brand and a place for performance. And our belief is that they need to work in unison and not mutually exclusive.
Okay, interesting. So Doug, you're our resident scientist on MMM here. So influencers being a particular challenge. How important are influencer and creator content to you guys? How do you cast influencers to align with brand identity? And then how do you measure the impact?
Yeah, so in my list on the screen, I started with creators and influencers. They are pretty prominent, and their impact can make or break a product launch, can make or break a brand itself. I would say that we've been on a journey, and the idea of making sure that the influencers you're targeting or touching are brand relevant, that have the right ethos, that are right for the brand equity is incredibly important, and a company with strong brands like ours thinks about that a lot. What was interesting for me when we first had our brands reaching out to influencers is that we were finding at the time the measurement approach we were using, which is marketing mix modeling, we were only using sales as the outcome. And we were finding very limited to no effect that we could detect. And our brand teams would come to me and say, well, Doug, you're looking for the wrong effect. And so we established a different way of measurement where we have 3 parts of the funnel. So we run three models essentially. A model on desirability where we look at whether influencer activity drives people to search more in Google, either for the brand or for the brand product. Then for middle funnel, we look at, do we get more unique site visitors? And that's a measure of consideration and engagement. And then at the bottom of the funnel is obviously sales. And by moving to this new approach of 3 different models that all talk to each other, so I can find out if something drives desirability, then I can see whether it drives consideration, and then I can see whether it drives conversion. That allowed us to do the proper measurement, and then we could actually see the impact at each part of the funnel. So that was transformative, and it helped give us confidence that influencer marketing was important. Non-brand search is important. Those things that are really hard to measure bottom of the funnel, when we measured at each part of the funnel and put it into a nested ecosystem, it transformed it. So that's not the only measurement we do, but that is I'll call it multi-stage marketing mix modeling. It helped us at a high level set the right tone and set the right budgets. And you talked about brand versus performance marketing. It really kind of demystified that world because we had budgets sitting in both places. Now they're together, but this approach helps us allocate more.
I like that multi-stage.
Multi-stage marketing mix
modeling.
modeling.
You should service mark that.
Well, I'm an evangelist of the topic, so I'm here to tell everyone. It's not proprietary to us.
Good.
Anybody who uses a marketing mix provider can use this approach.
That's super interesting. I mean, desirability being measurable in a factual way, I think is really interesting. So, Renee, what about you guys? What are you doing with influencers and how you measure them?
I actually, since we were kind of prepping for this call and hearing you talk about the importance of looking in other channels to see the success of influencers, it's inspired us to look in other channels and see, and it is showing up in places that you wouldn't expect. But generally, we're really excited about the opportunity to work with advocates and influencers. It's often not repeatable and it's tricky to scale. So I think we're thinking a lot around how do we harness it and think about we can make it grow in a more consistent way and not these kind of more viral capacity. Sometimes it feels like you're herding kittens when you're trying to really drive a lot of growth through this channel. But I think for me, the piece I'm trying to also be careful about is the balance of UGC-generated impressions in the world versus brand-generated impressions in the world. I want them to talk to each other. I want them to make sense so we can, again, kind of make sure we're driving a narrative and controlling the products that are getting out in a given season. And it's tricky. I don't have any answers yet, other than we're just kind of looking and seeing what's working.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, are you guys, how do you actually try to control that? So you're retargeting them with brand impressions, or how do you do that?
It's more around launching campaigns with a brand component versus launching campaigns with just the UGC component, and then seeing which one we feel adds up to a bigger number. Yeah. But yeah, not as advanced there as we'd like to be.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is probably. Okay, so switching to search, Doug, I know you guys have also been really scientific about trying to understand the impact of branded versus non-branded search. What are your key learnings there?
Yeah, so that's been a big debate. Do you spend your money on branded search terms or generic search terms? We call it non-brand. And we had felt like they were in 2 different budgets and they were basically fighting each other. And if you talk to online people or people who are in charge of the brand.com site, they seem to favor the branded search terms. So in this approach I was telling you about in the last question, the marketing mix modeling approach, we were able to put non-brand search, branded search together to find out which part of the funnel is it driving, and actually found some not obvious insights. So branded search actually can drive desirability in addition to driving sales. But the key was to measure non-brand search at driving desirability and then taking it down the funnel and putting it more on an equal footing, meaning that you're looking for incrementality when you're looking at marketing mix modeling. So the idea of where do you spend the next dollar, and so each variable, if you will, each marketing factor, it's on its equal footing. And by putting them together, then we could tell everybody, we could make that fair comparison. And that was incredibly helpful to give credit to non-brand search, but to also give branded search its due in terms of the other parts of the funnel that it can drive. And I wouldn't say we've cracked the code, but at least bringing it together on the same playing field allows for a richer discussion.
Okay. And I guess underneath this, I mean, how are you guys balancing sort of brand spend, versus performance? Because a lot of this work, Doug, presumably would be to give brand spend more of a case. I mean, what are you, just generally with all you guys, how are you thinking about that right now?
So for the idea of taking all the spending and then bucketing it, we don't actually think about brand versus performance marketing. We think about, here are all the marketing tactics, what are they meant to do, and basically treat them as all parts of choices that you need to make. But what's kind of cool about the approach is, if I want to drive upper funnel activity, then I can take the factors that are driving upper funnel and spend more on them. And if I want to drive more bottom of the funnel, this approach allows us to flex and do both. We can also say, if we just want to build the business, then what's, across the board the best thing to do? So we are seeing, though, that it's still, in a case where budgets get cut, what's going to get cut first is upper funnel. And that's true, I think, for all brands in the room. So I would say measurement doesn't solve everything. When your budgets are cut, you either stick to what the models tell you, or you try to do your best to mitigate the unintended consequences of focusing or cutting upper funnel spend. And that is a challenge that we're facing.
One quick follow-up on that too. It depends on, when you think search, there's organic search and paid search. So when we're talking organic search, one of the first things I have to kind of retrain a client on is to stop mixing the two together. Mm-hmm. Because think about it, if someone Googles your brand, you can't get higher than first. You already got it, right? And so if I roll in and I take credit for all the extra work all of your other channels have done, plus the incremental of non-branded, my numbers are going to look pretty good. But go back and look at the numbers for non-branded when you're specifically organic search. Now there's reasons, obviously, like you said, you could drive for desirability. I'm not saying to ignore it, but I'm specifically saying for organic search, make sure that you are looking at non-branded, because that's where you're going to get the incremental net new visitors from, and that's where your SEO team should be focused.
Yep. Okay, and then AJ, as long as we're there with search, so obviously a big developing change is the insertion of the AI generative results at the top. I don't understand this myself. Will you explain how this attributes in? How much traffic is it taking from organic and paid search, and how are companies dealing with this?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do this quick, because this is 90% of what people want to talk to me about. When I put on the slide, leaning in, I put technical SEO, which is usually not what people want to talk about. But they want to talk about it because of AI. And so everybody's going, wait a minute, am I going to be okay when everything changes, right? And so this, what is rolled out now is called, Google rebranded it from SGE to AI Overviews. So it's essentially like those featured snippets, like if you were Googling how to make a pie and it would just give you the answer, and without the story of the person's journey through Tibet or whatever before you get to the recipe, which is cool, but yeah, so it's like featured snippets. So the AI is going through, doing the work for you. See, right now, 80-90% of search is on you. You have to think thought to keystroke, you go do the browsing, the curating, the collecting. What's coming is 90% of the search will be assistant-led. The assistant, the AI assistant, will search for you, curate for you, will know for you. Show of hands, how many people are on iPhone ecosystem? All right, so if you didn't raise your hand, you're ruining my text, group chats, and it's a problem. No, Apple is going to win this. So what they launched yesterday, Apple is going to win this. Apple waited. They waited till the last to enter the market for cell phones. How'd that work out? Google was the 17th search player to enter the market. How'd that work out? Once the assistant has all my data, all my photos, all my shopping receipts, all my email, and I trust the privacy, I shouldn't, but I trust the privacy, then that assistant's gonna know everything about me. It's gonna know already that my son's gonna have that birthday. It's gonna know already the brands that he likes, the things that he wants. And that is gonna change search dramatically. So what we're doing right now is prepping the data. we're doing very boring technical things, getting your data feeds ready so that they can talk to ChatGPT, so they can talk to an LLM, making sure that you have the governance in place. What do I want seen? What do I not want seen? What do I want trained upon? What do I not want trained upon? It's something you should all very much be focused on, because that's what's coming next. In September, when Apple drops the next phone and millions of people pick it up and they experience real AI for the first time, they're not going back. It's going to be Blockbuster to Netflix. You're not going back. And so you need to have your data ready for that moment. Okay.
So, I mean, and how are you seeing those results impacting?
Oh, yeah. So right now, yeah, to answer the question, the negative is it's very hard to attribute because Google isn't giving the actual breakdown. We've done our own experiments. The AI overviews are causing about a 10% dip in traffic today. So the AI overviews are sucking up some of that traffic that you would normally get. But let's see how it shakes out. It's brand new. We haven't seen enough consumer behavior. It's only on about 2 to 5% of results right now. So give or take right now, 10% down is the number.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems to be pitting sort of Google against its advertisers. I mean, it doesn't.
Google against itself in some ways.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Billy, back to you. So full funnel measurement. What have been your biggest learnings the past couple of years on full funnel measurement? If you were to give us kind of your key mantras, your top do's and don'ts, what would they be?
I mean, certainly pivot off everything that Doug has said and done and apply that in its entirety. That would be priority number one. I mean, a marketing mix model, certainly in terms of allocations, it tends to be backwards looking instead of predictive going forward. It doesn't predict if you have a new arrivals or a launch or a collaboration, but you can at least be informed and make assumptions on that data and information and be more informed in terms of dollars. I think the key components are, one, everything is measurable. Even brand spend is measurable, whether it's awareness or sentiment or intent, direct load, anything, all of those components are measurable and should go into your marketing mix model. Two, you should be running tests on that. So Doug talked a lot about dollars and allocations. You need to be running tests against that information to prove whether the mix model and the assumptions you're making on it are actually incremental or not. You should always be running that in parallel. And the third is aligning internally around that mixed model and the tests that you're running. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum, whether it's a CFO who needs to understand or might look at it skeptically, or a creative team who's saying, is what I'm doing actually having an impact or not? They're interested in performance. And so I think bringing people together, running, having a measurement strategy, having a mixed modeling and allocation strategy, and then running tests against that allows you to at least get 80% of the way to a more full funnel historical kind of view of your performance.
Okay. Are you guys, is it shut off tests, hold out tests? What are you guys doing?
Could be creative tests, could be copy tests, could be the old PSA type tests, where it's more general public service announcement, just a basic brand, kind of ad, but at least you're testing the incrementality relative to creative, relative to a promotion. Even using an advocate content in your own brand feed. And we usually align our messaging around key events. So yes, we want to be always on, but what do we want to put our dollars behind so that we're presenting a single point of view to the end consumer, not a single kind of creative execution. So that's why we are running so many different variations in market to have a higher degree of confidence in the efficacy of what we're putting in market.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of our big drum beats is strategic uniformity, but not creative uniformity.
That's a good.
Yeah,
that's a good.
I think that's really important. So, guys, anybody else? I think we're in our parting moments here, but any other parting advice on full funnel measurement, the challenge of this?
I would just throw out, like, you can keep it simple. Like, I think it's, again, really easy to get lost in the details, but MarineLayer does not have any kind of like super complex modeling going on. I feel like I've done that in other roles. And what's most important, again, is to understand what you're trying to solve for, the strategic alignment on your broader goals. And then a lot of like stop, start, stop testing or pre-post or year-over-year analysis, turn something on, turn it off, almost like an elimination diet with your marketing channels. That gets you most of the way there to really understand if something is working or not. And certainly if something's going to be impactful. If you can't see it in that kind of analysis, it's not worth it, really, you getting lost in the details.
Yeah, I would underscore that. It's kind of the fallacy of false precision.
Yeah.
You know, if you get what's enough, you make an assumption, align on the assumption, run a little sensitivity analysis, it'll get you majority of the way there. If you're looking for perfection, you're going to, in Renee's terms, just kind of spin your wheels a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great segue into our final, or maybe that was anyway, I agree. We've just been seeing all year long that, you know, everybody seems to be zooming out and looking at the full system. What's the productivity on the full system? And I just can't say enough that a lot of our strategy creatively this year is to work multi-channel to drive these touches so that there's trust and recognition in the feed to pop out against the creator saturation and all these new brands that have been created. So yeah, I think in some ways we're back to the future of the 1950s era TV thinking with TikTok and all these other hard to attribute channels that it's full system marketing. So guys, you're incredible. Thank you so much for all of these insights.